St-Pierre versus Condit conference call. Today's conference is being recorded. At this time, for opening remarks and introductions, I would like to turn the conference over to Mr. Schaller. Please go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Candace. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the UFC 154 media conference call. UFC 154 takes place on Saturday, November 17th from the Bell Center in Montreal, and it's headlined by the welterweight title fight between GSP and interim champion Carlos Condit. There are still a limited number of tickets available for the welterweight title showdown at the Bell Center box office and online at eventco.ca. In the U.S., UFC 154 is available live on pay-per-view at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, with the prelims airing on FX Live at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. For our friends in Canada, fans can catch the prelims from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on Sportsnet and TVA Sports, and of course the pay-per-view is live at 10 p.m. Eastern. Before we get to today's call, I want to remind everybody about UFC Primetime, which follows GSP and Condit in the lead-up to their fight. It airs immediately following The Ultimate Fighter this Friday on FX. So we got The Ultimate Fighter at 10, immediately followed by Primetime at 11. Today we're joined on the call by GSP, Condit, UFC President Dana White, and UFC Director of Canadian Operations, Tom Wright. At this time, I'll turn it over to Dana. Dana?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to call in. Who has the first question?
Thank you. If you'd like to ask a question, please signal by pressing the star key followed by the digit 1 on your telephone keypad. If you are using a speakerphone, please make sure your mute function is turned off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. If you've signaled for a question prior to hearing these instructions on today's call, please repeat the process now by pressing star 1 again to ensure our equipment has captured your signal. We'll pause for just a moment to allow everyone an opportunity to signal for questions. And we'll take our first question from Rick Wright, the Albuquerque Journal.
Yes, sir. Dan, this may be a hard question to answer, but where does this main event rank in your mind as far as the history of UFC?
I don't know about as far as the history of the UFC, but this is a huge fight. I mean, if you look at George St-Pierre, he's been out for over a year, one of the most dominant champion, ever in that weight division. And I've said it many times, and I'll say it again: the biggest pay-per-view star in the UFC. Then you got Carlos Condit, who I really believe a lot of people aren't giving this kid enough credit. He's tough, man. This kid can fight. He's got great ground skills. He's got knockout power. And normally, if you look at the way fights are done in boxing, when a champion of GSP's caliber comes back, you usually give him an easy fight. This is far from an easy fight for George St-Pierre. This is a very tough fight.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And we'll take our next question from Matt Engel with Fort Worth Star-Telegram.
This is a question for Carlos. Carlos, do you feel like a pretty big underdog going into this fight? And if you do, then how do you get around the mindset, or do you think it's an advantage that George hasn't fought in more than a year?
Yeah, I do feel like an underdog. In most fights I'm going into, I put myself in that mindset. As far as George being out, I really don't. I don't see it being that big of a factor. I know that George's recovery is, from all reports from his camp, he's better than ever, and that's what I'm expecting.
Thank you.
And we'll take our next question from Nancy Audit with TVA Sports.
Oui, une question en français pour Georges St-Pierre. Georges, quel sera le plus grand défi pour toi ce soir-là dans l'octogone contre Carlos Condit?
Ça va être de gagner mon combat. En fait, quand ça fait tellement longtemps que t'as pas compétitionné, tu réalises ce qui manquait le mieux, en fait, c'est la santé. Ce qui manquait le plus, c'est la santé et de pouvoir compétitionner au niveau où j'étais auparavant. Et puis là, d'en revenir d'un combat de championnat du monde, pour moi, c'est comme un miracle. Et puis, je suis vraiment content et je suis très, très excité au fait d'aller me battre contre Carlos.
And we'll take our next question from Stephen Morocho with MMAJunkie.com.
Hey, Dana, we've recently learned that there's going to that Anderson Silva is going to be present for the fight on the 17th. Do you expect there to be some sort of in-cage call-out if GSP is victorious?
Well, there's no doubt that Anderson Silva is showing up to cheer George St-Pierre on. You know, he wants him to win this fight, and he wants to fight in after. So I would say yes.
And George, are you aware that Anderson's going to be at the fight? And what are your thoughts on his presence there and perhaps that super fight if you indeed win?
I don't care about Anderson Silva. He can do whatever he wants. He can go in Florida and stay in Brazil if he wants. I'm focusing on Carlos Condit. That's all matters to me.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
And it is star one to be placed into the queue. Star one. And we'll take our next question from Nicholas Cunningham with Hula America English and Spanish newspaper.
Yeah, actually two quick questions, one for Condit and one for GSP. My first question for Carlos is, how's the response been from your Hispanic fans, and what are your thoughts on the UFC having an event potentially in Mexico in 2013?
I have a lot of fans in the Hispanic market. They're as excited, about the sport as I think anybody around the world. I think it's probably a great opportunity for UFC to be moving into that market and possibly doing a fight in Mexico. There's a long history of fight combat sports in that culture, and I think it's a great transition.
Right. Do you have any specific Hispanic organizations that you work with around your area?
Specific Hispanic organizations? No, not really.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, and good luck on Saturday. And my last question for GSP is, I know you and BJ Penn had some great fights. How have the conversations been lately with Rory McDonald about his fight coming up? And then how have you been able to help in training, and how has he helped you?
Yeah, well, we help each other in training. We just finished training together. I was with him a few minutes ago. So training really hard to get ready, and it's fun because we fight and pretty close, so we can we can get ready together at the same time. So it's good to have a training partner getting ready at the same time.
All right. Thank you very much, and good luck to you on Saturday as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we'll go next to Morgan Campbell with Toronto Star.
Perfect. Hey, thanks a lot for having me on, guys. I have a quick question for Dana and one for George. Real quick, first, Dana, how important is it for the business of the UFC to have George St-Pierre back in action? You mentioned that he's the biggest pay-per-view draw in the organization.
Yeah, it's a big deal. We missed him. It's good to have him back.
Perfect. And George, there's been a lot of talk about, again, how you're the biggest pay-per-view draw, in this organization. But for you, do you ever feel any pressure kind of to help carry this brand and to boost it?
Well, I have always pressure. That's one of the reasons everyone is calling me out for fighting. They want to make money. They want to make the pay-per-view, So the importance for me is to take one fight at a time and focusing on the present moment. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm focusing on Carlos Condit.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
And we'll go next to Dave Diebert with Post Media.
Hi, guys. Thanks for the time. Carlos, it seems like this has happened with more than one of your fights, but you're fighting GSP, but a lot of talk, and most recently this week about another potential opponent for him. Is it annoying? Is it motivating? How do you take all of that?
I would say that it's definitely motivating. I like playing the role of the spoiler. There's a lot of people in the sport and in the media that I think are overlooking me as an opponent for George and looking towards, you know, a super fight with Anderson maybe. You know, I don't feel like George is overlooking me, but you know, I'm excited to, you know, get in there, do my thing, and you know, hopefully change a lot of plans.
Now, I guess I don't know if you can really do it, but you know, removing the fighter part of it, does the idea, you know, just you're a fan of the sport, taking yourself out of the equation, does you know a George Anderson fight as a fan intrigue you?
Yeah, I think so. You know, they're two of the greatest fighters, you know, ever to step in the octagon, and you know, there's always that interest in seeing, you know, who really is the best. But you know, for first things first, you know, George and I have to do our thing.
Okay, all right, that's great. Thanks, Carlos.
And we'll go next to Reed Forgrave with FoxSports.com.
Yeah, just a couple questions for Dana. Dana, what is it about GSP that makes him a bigger pay-per-view draw than even, say, a John Jones or a Chael Sonnen?
I don't know. I mean, I couldn't say enough good things about George St-Pierre. I say it all the time. The guy's, you know, he represents the belt well. He represents the sport well. He represents this company well. He represents Canada. I mean, I couldn't say enough good things about the guy. But the other thing, too, is the difference between George St-Pierre and every other guy that fights in the UFC is he's got an entire country behind him. You know, there's pay-per-view in Canada, too. And you know, I don't think that any other fighter has that.
What does it mean to have him away? I mean, how much of a hit has that been for the UFC?
For him to be gone, I mean, it sucks. The guy fights 3 times a year, and he's the biggest pay-per-view draw in the company. And, yeah, when he's gone for over a year, it's definitely not a good thing.
Cool, thanks.
And we'll go next to Damon Martin with MMAweekly.com.
First question is for George. George, you know, you've said recently that you've heard some of the criticism that people have made about you not finishing fights. How do you balance the criticism without changing your style that puts you in danger?
It's not really be in danger. I believe it's I need to be more opportunist, and I listen to the critics, you know, and I want to be more opportunist and be jumping more on opportunity when I have time to finish. That's why I've been working a lot on it. And it's important. The critics are there to make me better. I don't take it only as a negative thing. I think it's a positive thing.
Do you see moments when you look at your past fights, and a lot of it has come since the first Matt Serra fight, do you look at your fights and see a big difference and criticize yourself when you look at some of those performances?
Yeah. You know, John Fitch I'm very happy with John Fitch fight, with Jaguar fight. Maybe one fight I'm not happy, especially my last one with Jake Schill, I didn't look good. I'm sure I could have done better, and I'm not happy. When I finished that fight, I wasn't happy. BJ Penn, you know, I finished BJ Penn. He didn't came back for the 5th round. He would have given me 5 more minutes. I guarantee I would have finished you. I put him in the, like you say in French, I put him in the red, you know, like he was gassed. You know, he was in the red, you know, he was almost done. So a lot of critics are bad, but a lot of critics are, I think it's good for me to listen to it to make me a better fighter, but some are, you know, a little bit, no matter how good you're going to do, they're always going to be people saying bad stuff about you.
And one question for Dana. Dana, I know we're talking a lot about, you know, if GSP wins the Anderson Silva super fight, but can you give us a comment on the Martin Kampmann Johnny Hendricks fight? What happens to the winner of that? Is that still up in the air? Could they get the next title shot? What's on the line there?
Yeah, I have no idea. We got to see how this thing plays out or whatever. You know, like I tell everybody, you know, people are asking me, you know, is the Anderson Silva fight happening after? I said, he's got to beat Carlos Condit first. And that fight's, you know, that's, I think, like I said earlier, people are overlooking Carlos Condit, and that's a bad idea.
Thanks very much, guys.
All right.
We'll take our next question from Dave Meltzer with WrestlingObserver.com.
This is for Dana. Theoretically, I mean, if Carlos Condit wins the fight and looks very impressive in doing so, I mean, is there a chance of Carlos Condit and Anderson Silva in a fight, or is that something that you think he wouldn't be quite ready for this year?
No, this fight, guys, understand, this fight between Anderson Silva and George St-Pierre is a pound-for-pound fight. These guys have both been number one and number two, either way you want to call them, for the last however many years, and that's really what this fight is all about. Carlos Condit wins the fight, he'll defend the title against who's next.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to see.
And we'll go next to Jeremy Filosa with 98.5 FM Montreal.
Yes, this question is either for Dana White or Tom Wright. I don't know who could answer this question, but from the information I was able to gather, the tickets on the floor and the more expensive tickets in the seating area are at $600. What I'm hearing is that the building is sold out, but those tickets are not selling. Can you just, I know GSP is very popular here in Montreal, but do you feel now that you've maybe pushed it a little bit too far with the price range? What do you intend on doing if those tickets don't sell? We're hearing people from Evenco are feeling that they'll need to fill those seats. I don't know if that means give them away or what, but can you just talk about that, please?
Well, we're still a week and a half out, and I heard rumblings about this gate not doing well, George St-Pierre not selling out. The gate's over $3 million. The gate's at like $3.1 million right now. I wouldn't say that the gate sucks. The biggest gate you can do there is $4 million. What we did last time with George St-Pierre, and yeah, maybe we did overprice this one a bit much, but times are tough out there, man. I don't know. We'll see what happens as we get closer to the event. We'll see how it goes. But the gate is, one of the top gates of this year, $3.1 million, and we'll see what happens over the next week and a half.
But what would be your options? What are any options that you could look at?
I guess I'll be calling your radio station looking for giveaways. How's that?
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
And we'll go next to Karen Bryant with MMA Heat.
Hey, guys. Dana, question for you. How does Nick Diaz fit into the picture when he comes back? Obviously, I know George before, and I wanted to ask George his opinion again, but before I'd mentioned how much he wanted to fight Nick. We already did it. I'm just curious where Nick fits in, if Koscheck is his next option or what's up.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Nick's a ways away before getting licensed again, so he's got to get through the athletic commission first, get licensed, and who knows where we'll be by then. The landscape changes so fast in the fight world. We'll see what happens when Nick's done with the commission, and we'll go from there.
And George, to you, is that a fight that you feel that you'd still like to have at some point?
Yeah, it's a lot of guys that have been calling me out. Nick is definitely one of them. But the fight that I want the most is against the best man right now. It's Carlos Condit. That's the fight that I want.
Okay, great. And last question for you, Carlos. I'm just curious, with your training camp, have you done the sort of, if it's not broken, don't fix it approach and stayed with the same training and the same partners, or have you mixed it up at all this time?
Excuse me. We switched it up a little bit, definitely with the coaching, because Greg Jackson isn't involved. So I had to bring in several other people to kind of fill his shoes. Yeah, I did switch it up, and I wouldn't say that it's a huge departure from what we were doing before, but it is just kind of adding and supplementing to what's been successful lately.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And we'll go next to Rick Wright, the Albuquerque Journal.
Hi, one question for George and one for Carlos. George, I don't know if you've addressed this before or not, but you've always trained at TriStar as well as Jackson's. You've said that you and Greg are still close. But once this fight is over, regardless of the outcome, would you come back to Jackson's at least part-time, or does this situation kind of cut that cord?
No, of course I will. Greg, I always train in Montreal, but most of the time Greg was coming in Montreal. Nothing can change. He stay always my friend and very close to me. Just for this fight, the protocol, so no problem.
Carlos, you talked about this just now, but and you haven't been with Jack since your whole career. But how different has it been without Greg there, and or is it the same kind of Chris Luttrell among others, just knowing the drill so well?
It hasn't been a huge change. I still interact with Greg. He's still at the gym, so it's not like we're not on speaking terms or anything like that. But the guys that I'm training with right now, Chris Luttrell, Mike Winklejohn, and some of the other guys, I've been training with them for a long time, especially Chris Luttrell, and I really feel like I'm in good hands, for the preparation.
All right, thanks, guys.
And as a reminder, that is *1 for questions. That is *1 to be placed into the queue. And we will go next to Mac Ingo with Fort Worth Star-Telegram.
Dana, this question's for you. I bugged you about it the last time, and I'll continue to bug you about it. If you had a super fight potentially lined up between George and Anderson, is there any chance at all we could potentially see the fight at Cowboy Stadium?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's 3 great venues that you could do. We could go to Toronto, huge stadium there, Dallas, Texas Stadium, or you could do a soccer stadium in Brazil. So those are our 3 options. We'll see what we do. We'll see where it ends up. First, this fight has to happen. People, I mean, it's fun to talk about this super fight. But I'm sure it's pissing Carlos off every time it's asked, and he's got to get through Carlos Condit first.
Is there anything, Dana, that is preventing you guys from? I know when I asked you about this a few weeks ago, you said you wanted to hit a certain number to do Cowboy Stadium, and I'm assuming the same with Toronto and Brazil. Is there anything other than that hosting event that you think is that big that's preventing you from doing a fight at Cowboy Stadium?
Yeah, if George St-Pierre versus Anderson Silva were to happen, that's a fight you could do at Cowboy Stadium.
Have you had any discussions at all with those guys recently in the last few weeks about potentially doing something, or do you think that's just going to have to wait until the first of the year when you guys can start realistically scheduling things?
There was some lady yelling in the background. I couldn't hear what you said. Say that again.
Have you had any discussions or dialogues with the Cowboys in the last few weeks, or are you just going to wait till the first of the year?
Oh no, we've been talking to them for a while. Yeah, we've been talking. Believe me, they're pumped and ready. Whenever we can bring an event there, they're ready for it.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
And we'll go next to Dave Diebert with Post Media.
Hi, I just follow up with George. With it being so long since you have competed, are the excited butterflies in your stomach? Are they a little? Are there a few more now that it's getting closer?
No, the thing that I see it as another fight, another opponent, and a different problem. But what I realize the most is when you get hurt. And you cannot do that for a long time. You realize a little bit how you missed it. It's a little bit like when you're in love with your girlfriend, for example. If you have a girlfriend, when you're with her every day, sometimes you don't realize you love that person. But when you're away from for a long time, you realize you really love the person because you missed her. But it's a little bit the same thing. Than when someone is in love, when you do that every day, sometimes it gets so hard. Then the monotony and the stress make you forget that you like that. But the fact that I got hurt and I hadn't done it for so long, and I had to change my routine and everything to make my life more efficient. Now I'm really pumped up. I'm very happy to be back, and I realized that I missed that a lot, and I really enjoy doing it.
Okay, all right. Thanks, George.
And as a reminder, that is *1 to be placed into the queue, *1. And we'll take our next question from Victoria Belukova from Russian Chicago Magazine.
Hello, guys. How are you today? My question is for George. You've been out away from Octagon for more than a year. Do you have any fears going into the fight with Carlos Condit in regards to any you can mention about?
Listen, I'm always afraid when I'm going to fight, regardless whoever I'm fighting. Like, you know what? Even though I'm scared, November 17, I'm going to make that walk to the octagon, and I'm going to be fired up and compete and fight the best as I can. And I'm going to live everything out there. That's something I can promise to everybody.
And my other question as well to you, George, is what have you learned throughout this year that you've been away from Octagon about your friends, about your family, about your training partners, about the sport, about MMA? What did you get from that year?
What did I get from? What did I change? What did I get? You said.
No. What have you learned when you've been away from the fight? About your friends, about your training partners. Did you learn good?
I changed a lot of stuff in my life, in my personal life, of course. A lot of things to make it easier and more efficient. And one thing I can say, I'm not burned out. I used to, people says to me sometimes I lost my smile. I used to smile all the time when I'm doing press conference and stuff like that. I used to be more happy, and during the last few fights, I lost that fire. And it's true that I did it, but it happened, slowly, so I didn't see it really happen. But now that I haven't done this for a long time, I found it back. And now I can tell you, I spend time in the gym, and when I'm at the end of my training camp, most of the time I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to be in vacation, and I can't wait to be done with this. But now I don't want to go on vacation. I want to enjoy every second of it. I want to live the present moment. I'm gonna get into that cage. Like when I fought in Toronto, I threw those legs on. I was like, wow, I need to leave the octagon. I want to finish, I want to leave there and with the victory and get rid of it, But now I don't want to get rid of it. I want to enjoy every second of it. I want to have the experience and have the chance to live every piece of second of it. It's not like I'm not burned out anymore. I'm happy to be back, and I think it's gonna be good for me.
All right. Thank you very much. Good luck to you both, guys. Thank you.
And we'll go next to Nancy Audit with TVA Sports.
Yes, I have three questions. First, for Carlos. Carlos, you said that George will have more pressure than you. What do you mean?
Well, and I don't know. This is just an assumption. When I fought in my hometown, I felt a lot more pressure. Also, he's coming back off an injury. This is kind of a must-win fight for him, and I just feel like all the pressure's on him. He's the man. He's got the status. I really have nothing to lose. I can just go in there, perform to the best of my ability, put on a good show, put on an entertaining fight, and let the chips fall where they may.
Es-tu d'accord avec ça, Georges? Et comment, si oui, si tu es d'accord avec ça, que c'est toi qui vas avoir le plus de pression, comment tu vas gérer ça?
Je vais le dire en anglais parce que je veux qu'ils comprennent ce que je veux dire.
OK, tu vas répondre après en français.
OK. I'm always, no matter, all my fights are big fights. I always have pressure, all my fights. Whoever I'm fighting, what's the promotion leading up to the fight, if there is a bad blood or not, or if there is an injury that make me away for a long time. It's always pressure because I always fight. All my last fight was been for world titles. It's always a big fight, I'm used to fight on big fight, and it's not the first time I fought at home. I fought many times at home. So yes, it's true. It's a lot of pressure on me, but I'm used to fight under pressure, and I think I perform at my best when I feel like I'm over the edge. That's when I'm at my best. So I think it's a good thing for me.
En français, s'il vous plaît, Georges?
Je performe beaucoup mieux quand je me sens comme si je suis au bord du précipice. Et c'est pas la première fois. Chaque combat que j'ai fait dernièrement, c'est des combats de championnat du monde, donc c'est des gros combats. Et je performe toujours mieux quand il y a beaucoup de pression, il y a beaucoup d'enjeux dans mes combats.
Can we get your prediction, guys? Carlos first and George after, maybe Dana too?
I'm gonna walk away with the UFC welterweight title. Undisputed, no more interim championship. I'm gonna be the undisputed champion. On November 18th.
Georges, your prediction in French, please.
It's very similar. Je vais être champion du monde, undisputed. Je vais battre Carlos Condit et gagner la ceinture championnat du monde encore une fois.
And Dana?
Dana's actually left the call to attend to a meeting, so we will save that question for Fight Week in Montreal.
Okay.
And we'll go next to Jeffrey Harris with 411mania.com MMA.
Thank you for having us on the call today. First question for GSP. On UFC Tonight, you talked about wanting to enjoy getting into the octagon again and not with the thought of getting out. Did you have that feeling at all in any of your recent fights, perhaps against Jake Shields or any of your more recent opponents before this fight?
No, I didn't really have that feeling. I lost. I like what I do, but I forgot that I like it. The monotony, and I haven't done it for a long time, and a lot of stuff was happening in my life, and I feel like I lost a little bit the fire, And now I'm glad to be back. I realize that I love that, and it's important. If you don't have fun doing what you're doing, just don't do it, Because I'm good at what I do because I have fun. And when you don't have fun, you become not as good. So I have fun at what I do, and I want to enjoy every second of it. So it's the best job in the world. We're lucky, we're blessed. We're a world-class athlete fighting in front of a lot of people, and we get paid for it at the highest level. It's a great opportunity, and we're very happy to do that. And I feel very glad to do this.
Yeah. Now, for Carlos Condit, you talked about being the hungrier fighter for this fight. Is that really going to make the difference here, though? We heard John Fitch when he fought GSP. He said he had nothing to lose for that fight, and GSP just no one's been able to beat him. No one's been able to deal with his wrestling, his quickness. Why do you think you're going to be able to deal with that at UFC 154?
I feel like I have a skill set, and I pose some problems for a lot of opponents, not just George, that they don't get from different guys. I'm well rounded. I'm able to take the fight to my opponent no matter where the fight ends up, and then I'm mentally strong. And not saying that George's other opponents haven't been, but we're just gonna have to see how it goes. But I'm very confident, and I know George is one of the best fighters that's ever stepped in the octagon, and it's an honor to compete against him. But I really feel ready. I feel like I'm as ready as I've ever been, and I'm excited to go out there and do my thing.
Thank you very much.
This does conclude today's question and answer session. At this time, I would like to turn the call back to Mr. Schuller.
Thanks, Candace, and thanks to GSP, Dana, and Condit as well. A couple of quick updates here that have come into us since the call began. We'll now have 3 hours of prelim coverage in Canada on Sportsnet and TVA Sports. That'll be from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern on Fight Night. So that's 3 hours of coverage for our fans up in Canada. In addition to that, we have a busy week of events in Montreal leading up to UFC 154. The UFC will be hosting all of its Fight Week events at the same venue. That venue is New City Gas, G-A-S. It's located at 950 Ottawa Street in Montreal. And the schedule of events for next week is big, and I'll run through them now. All times are Eastern. Wednesday, November 14th, we'll have a press conference with GSP and Condit at 1 p.m. On Thursday, November 15th, we'll have the open workouts for media for 12 to 3 p.m. And then on Friday, November 16th, UFC on Foxstar, Rory McDonald's going to be doing the Fight Club Q&A at 2 p.m., and then that will be followed by the weigh-ins at 4 p.m. Fuel TV will have full coverage from the weigh-ins beginning at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Just a quick reminder, The Ultimate Fighter this Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern and Pacific, immediately followed by UFC Primetime at 11 on FX. And tomorrow we will have a media conference call with the Ultimate Fighter Brazil 2 coaches, heavyweights Minotauro Nogueira and Fabricio Verdum. That call will take place again tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Before we wrap up, I'm going to turn things over to Tom Wright for closing remarks.
Thanks, everybody, for taking the time to get on this call today. UFC 154 next Saturday, November the 17th. We're really excited about it. It's the 11th time we've been in Canada, 3rd time this year. And, it's the 5th time we've come to Montreal outside of Las Vegas. There aren't that many cities that can match Montreal. There's 10 Canadians on this card. We're super excited about, obviously, the main event for the undisputed welterweight championship of the world. But, there's going to be a whole bunch of other great fights on Saturday night, November the 17th. So thanks, everybody, for getting on the call today. Look forward to seeing people in Montreal next week. And once again, thanks for everything.